It's my journey, it's your journey. You need my help and I need yours. 'Cause we are
Saint Kateri Tekakwitha, the lily of the Mohawks and her path to holiness. In the cool mist of an early American dawn, long before the borders of nations or the rise of bustling cities, the forests of upstate New York echoed with the prayers of a gentle soul whose faith would light the world. Saint Kateri Tekakwitha, known as the Lily of the Mohawks, is a flower that bloomed against adversity. Her story woven from courage, grace, and an unwavering devotion to Jesus in the Eucharist and the Blessed Virgin Mary. Her path to holiness is not just the tale of one remarkable young woman. It's an invitation to all of us. Through her, we see that sainthood is not distant or unreachable. As we journey into her life, her love for Christ and His Church radiates forth, beckoning us to deepen our own relationship with God. At Journeys of Faith, we believe that the stories of saints like Saint Kateri have the power to inspire conversion, ignite the flame of spirituality, and strengthen faith in families, parishes, and all seekers of truth. Join us as we travel the spiritual trail blazed by Saint Kateri Tekakwitha, a humble Mohawk maiden whose holiness continues to lead countless souls closer to Jesus, especially present in the Eucharist, and to the comforting embrace of Our Lady. Let her testimony refresh your heart, encourage your devotion, and remind you, God can bloom roses of sanctity in the most unexpected places. Early life among the Mohawk people. Kateri Tekakwitha was born in 1656 in the Mohawk village of Asernenon, nestled along the running waters of what is now upstate New York. Her childhood unfolded against the vibrant tapestry of Mohawk culture. Woven with the rhythms of nature, the warmth of kinship, and a reverence for the Creator. Yet, for Kateri, these earliest years were shadowed by extraordinary trial. At the age of 4, a smallpox epidemic swept through her village, leaving devastation in its wake. The deadly illness claimed her parents and younger brother, and left Kateri herself physically scarred and partially blind. Still, the orphaned child found company and shelter among her extended family, and the Mohawk clan, whose traditions cultivated resilience amidst suffering. Despite her afflictions, Kateri was drawn to the quiet spaces, walking by the edge of forest clearings, listening to the elders tell stories, and contemplating the natural world as a reflection of something far greater. Her given name, Tekakwitha, meaning she who puts things in order, foreshadowed a soul innately disposed toward harmony and peace, even as her world was marked by hardship. Missionaries from the Jesuit order, known as Black Robes, would occasionally visit the Mohawk villages, sharing the gospel and stories of Jesus. Young Kateri, though raised among indigenous beliefs, watched and listened with a heart hungry for truth. The cross and the rosary began to stir within her a longing, one that would only grow as she journeyed toward her own encounter with Christ in the sacraments and prayer. Yet, in these tender, formative years, she remained rooted in the life and labors of her people, shaped by their joys and trials, and by a gentle yearning to serve a purpose beyond herself. Deepen your journey of faith with Saint Kateri Tekakwitha. Are you longing to grow closer to Jesus through the inspiring example of the saints? At Journeys of Faith, we invite you to take the next step on your spiritual adventure, ensured in the love of the Eucharist and the gentle guidance of the Blessed Virgin Mary. Saint Kateri Tekakwitha, the Lily of the Mohawks, reminds us that holiness blooms in every land and culture. Let her story kindle your devotion and strengthen your resolve to follow Christ, no matter the obstacles. Here's how you can continue your journey. Explore our rich collection of books, documentaries, and audio resources on Saint Kateri Tekakwitha and other holy men and women who witnessed the power of the Eucharist and Marian devotion. Bring the saints into your home with beautifully crafted sacramentals, rosaries, medals, statues, and prayer cards that inspire prayer and keep your focus on heaven. Strengthen your faith community by sharing traditional Catholic resources in your family, parish, or ministry group. Inspire a new generation with stories of courage and faith. Stay connected with our free mobile app and online store for ongoing inspiration, timely faith resources, and exclusive offers. Browse Saint Kateri Tekakwitha collection at Journeys of Faith. Let Journeys of Faith walk with you as you follow in the footsteps of Saint Kateri and other saints. Together, let's answer the call to holiness, the tragedy of smallpox and its lasting impact. The forests of 17th century New France were alive with the rhythms of Mohawk life, yet under the surface lingered the slow-motion devastation wrought by a silent, unseen foe, smallpox. Into this world Saint Kateri Tekakwitha was born, in the village of Asernenon, around 1656. Even in her infancy, her path was marked by suffering. Her mother, a devout Christian Algonquin, her father, a Mohawk chief, both lost to the merciless disease during a smallpox epidemic. Kateri herself survived, but not unscathed. Her vision weakened. Her delicate face marked by deep scars, a visible sign of the trials that the Lord would ask her to carry. The aftermath of smallpox left more than physical wounds for the Mohawk people. And for Kateri, the epidemic shattered families, challenged tribal unity, and introduced an ache of vulnerability. In many ways, disease prepared the soil for spiritual transformation. Orphaned and alone, Kateri was raised by an uncle who held fast to traditional beliefs, while she felt the first whisperings of a hidden hunger. Within her, amidst the scars and loss, the seeds of deep faith took root. The Eucharist and the presence of the black robes, as the Jesuits were known, became beckoning signs of hope. The ever-present memory of loss drew Kateri not to bitterness, but to the pierced heart of Jesus and the compassionate embrace of Mary, our Mother. The fragrance of suffering, mystically united with Christ's own passion, shaped Kateri's holiness, not merely as endurance, but as a path toward sanctity. In her story, we are reminded that great trials, though wounding, can become channels of grace, shaping souls for heaven and radiating the quiet, courageous beauty of a lily blooming amidst adversity, a soul set apart. Kateri's early virtue. From her earliest days, Kateri Tekakwitha's life bore the marks of gentle strength and childlike faith. Orphaned at just 4 years old during a devastating smallpox epidemic in her Mohawk village, Kateri's world was cloaked in both suffering and silence. The disease left her face scarred and her eyesight dimmed, yet within her heart a quiet beauty flourished, a longing for love, for purity, and ultimately for God. Even amid the daily rhythms of native life in Asernenon, Kateri witnessed the rituals of her people with respect, but already hungered for something beyond. Her gentleness drew the notice and tender affection of relatives, but she remained strangely set apart, drawn to solitude, prayer, and acts of secret self-giving. Visitors to her home would later recall Kateri's extraordinary patience and meekness, her refusal to retaliate in the face of teasing or misunderstanding, and the way she carried out her chores with a serenity that made the ordinary seem radiant. When Jesuit missionaries arrived in her village, Kateri listened quietly to the stories of Jesus, the cross, and the sacraments. The words awakened what her soul already intuited: that purity is precious, that suffering can be redemptive, and that every heart is made to be filled by God alone. With each whispered prayer and humble act of charity, Kateri's hidden holiness grew. Unyielding in her desire to know Christ, she requested baptism at age 20, despite opposition and confusion from those around her. Taking the name Kateri after Saint Catherine of Siena, she courageously embraced her identity as a Christian, intent on walking the hard, beautiful road of virtue, trust, and surrender. From those early years, Kateri's life became a canvas of faith, modest, luminous, and set apart for God's glory. Encounters with Jesuit missionaries. Amid the lush forests and winding rivers of 17th century North America, a quiet encounter was taking place, one that would forever change the path of a young Mohawk woman named Kateri Tekakwitha. Into her village at Caughnawaga came the black-robed Jesuit missionaries, bearers of the gospel and witnesses to the transformative message of Christ. Clad in humility and fortified by prayer, these priests faced unimaginable hardship. But it was their compassion and perseverance that first stirred something deep within Kateri's heart. As a child, Kateri was left orphaned by a smallpox epidemic that left her face scarred and her vision weakened. Despite carrying the marks of suffering, she was drawn to the gentleness of the Jesuits and the peace they radiated. Their devotion to the Eucharist, their love for the Blessed Virgin Mary, and their willingness to sacrifice for the sake of souls ignited within her a longing for spiritual truth. Kateri would often listen quietly to the missionaries' accounts of Jesus Christ, his presence in the sacraments, and the miracle of the Mass. For the Jesuits, the journey to bring Christ to the New World demanded more than words. It asked for witness. In secret gatherings and whispered catechesis, Saint Kateri learned the prayers of the Rosary, the beauty of Our Lady's example, and the profound mystery of Jesus in the Eucharist. She embraced these teachings with childlike faith, setting her heart on following Christ, no matter the personal cost. This gentle encounter blossomed into a deep conversion, setting Kateri on an interior pilgrimage of holiness that would inspire generations. Her life, shaped by these early meetings with Jesuit missionaries, became a living testament to the power of evangelization, rooted in the sacraments, nourished by Marian devotion, and crowned with trust in God's providence, the call to conversion and baptism. The story of Saint Kateri Tekakwitha's conversion is the quiet heartbeat of her journey to holiness, a tale where grace tiptoes gently through the forests of upstate New York and into one searching soul. Born in 1656 into a Mohawk village, Kateri was enveloped by a world of ancient tradition and, after smallpox claimed her parents' lifelong suffering. Her face, scarred by the disease, became a visible reminder of both physical wounds and an internal hunger for something more. Kateri's first encounter with the Catholic faith came through the tireless mission of French Jesuit priests. Though many in her community resisted, suspicious of these black robes and their strange ways, Kateri felt a stirring within her, a tenderness and strength she recognized in tales of Jesus and his mother Mary. The cross became her signpost in an uncertain world. In secret, she listened as missionaries spoke of Christ's sacrificial love and the gentle embrace of the Blessed Mother. The message of redemption and divine adoption resonated deep in her wounded heart. She, too, could be beloved by God. Baptism did not come easily. For 2 years, Kateri faced ridicule and suspicion, her desire for Christ misunderstood by those closest to her, yet her resolve never wavered. Often, she could be found in the simple, wooden chapel, kneeling in the shadows, gazing at the crucifix and longing for the sacraments. Finally, at the age of 20, she received the waters of baptism on Easter Sunday, choosing the Christian name Kateri, the Catherine, after Saint Catherine of Siena. It was her fiat, her yes echoing Mary's own surrender. With that baptism, Kateri's life was forever set apart for Christ. The Eucharist became her food, the Rosary her shield, and self-giving sacrifice her daily way. From that moment forward, Kateri's love for Jesus was tangible. In the way she cared for the sick, in her hidden acts of penance, and in the hours spent kneeling in prayer before the Blessed Sacrament. Despite deep opposition and the loneliness of living differently, she found joy in pouring her heart out to God, inspired by the saints who'd walked the narrow road before her. Through the grace of conversion, Kateri Tekakwitha emerged as a vibrant witness to the transforming power of the gospel, a spiritual lily blossoming in even the harshest wilderness. Courage amid persecution and family opposition. Saint Kateri Tekakwitha's journey to holiness was marked by an extraordinary inner strength, a courage forged in the crucible of suffering, isolation, and sacrifice. The story of her youth unfolds against the tumultuous backdrop of 17th-century Mohawk land, scarred by waves of disease, conflict, and the gradual arrival of the Christian missionaries. Orphaned at age 4 by a smallpox epidemic that left her face scarred and her eyesight damaged, Kateri's days were shaped by hardship and the silent ache of being different. But her greatest test was yet to come. When the Jesuit missionaries brought the light of the gospel to her village near present-day Orisville, New York, Kateri encountered the truth of Christ and the beauty of the Catholic faith. The stirrings of faith within her heart became a source of tension and at times outright hostility. Her uncle, a Mohawk chief and guardian after her parents' death, and many in her clan were openly suspicious, if not hostile, to the Christian religion which they associated with foreign influence and the loss of traditional ways. Despite her vulnerability as an orphan, Kateri's resolve grew firm. She embraced the catechism in secret, attending lessons at great personal risk, hiding her cross, and whispering prayers alone in the forest. Family members berated and mocked her, denying her food on Sundays so she would be forced to work instead of observing the Lord's Day. She bore scorn and ridicule patiently, responding with the gentleness and humility of Christ himself. Her secret acts of mortification and prayer became a spiritual lifeline, drawing down graces in moments of trial. Her baptism at age 20 was a moment of both profound joy and fresh danger. Open profession of her newfound faith made her a target for more severe persecution. Shunned by her relatives, threatened with violence, and forced into solitude. Yet Kateri's faith did not waver. The love of Jesus in the Eucharist and her devotion to the Blessed Virgin, Mary gave her strength to withstand every blow. She would flee her village under the cover of darkness, journeying over 200 miles to the Catholic mission at Kanawaki, determined to live for Christ and Christ alone, no matter the cost. Her courage stands as a luminous witness for Christians today. The cost of discipleship is real, but so too is the astonishing grace that flows to those who cling to Jesus, come what may. Browse Saint Kateri Tekakwitha collection at Journeys of Faith. I belong entirely to Jesus. Her vow of virginity. In a world woven with the traditions and expectations of her Mohawk heritage, Kateri Tekakwitha dared to do something beautiful and profoundly countercultural. She offered her whole heart to Christ through a vow of virginity. For Kateri, her encounter with the Catholic faith was not a passing interest or the mere acceptance of something new. It was the central axis upon which her young life turned. Her love for Jesus, especially as encountered in the Holy Eucharist, drew her deeper each day into the mysteries of self-sacrifice and longing for holiness. Kateri's choice was not without suffering. She faced the fury and misunderstanding of her own village, enduring isolation and sometimes harsh ridicule. More than once, her commitment to her faith put her safety at risk. And yet, amid the storm of opposition, Kateri's soul found its anchor in Jesus. The prayer she kept nestled in her heart was straightforward, pure, and aflame. I am not my own. I belong entirely to Jesus. These words were not just an aspiration, but the foundation of her life. Her devotion echoed the luminous examples of the great virgin saints who had gone before her, from Saint Cecilia to Saint Agnes, but Kateri's path bore the unique mark of her own people and her own cross. She would rise before dawn to attend Mass and spend long hours in prayer before the Blessed Sacrament, her gaze fixed on the Eucharistic Lord. Inspired also by her tender devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary, Kateri meditated on Mary's own fiat, her surrender to God's will, finding the courage to give everything, with nothing held back. Through this radical act of spiritual consecration, Kateri Tekakwitha wove together the threads of her Mohawk heritage and her newfound Catholic faith in a tapestry of sanctity. Her vow of virginity, made not in a grand cathedral but in the simplicity of her heart, radiated out into the wilderness, proclaiming to every age that nothing can keep the soul from becoming the spouse of Christ. In Kateri's footsteps, we witness the sacred possibility of saying yes, completely, courageously, and forever, Journey to Kanawake, a new life in Christ, the icy wind of the saint. Lawrence River was not enough to chill the burning zeal in Kateri's heart as she journeyed north. Leaving behind her home and family in Asernenon, she traveled, some say by canoe, some say on foot, over 200 miles to the Christian village of Kanawake. It was a path filled with hardship, but for Kateri Tekakwitha, every mile was an offering, a surrender to the merciful love of Jesus Christ. Kanawake became more than a refuge. It was a spiritual home, alive with the gentle rhythms of prayer, community, and the Holy Mass. For the first time, Kateri could practice her Catholic faith freely and fully. The Eucharist was her lifeline, the center of her longing. She spent hours in the mission chapel, adoring the Blessed Sacrament, kneeling in silent reverence before the tabernacle. There, in the presence of Christ, she found strength to persevere, her heart blossoming in purity and humility. Daily life at Kanawake was woven with both struggle and beauty. Kateri's devotion to Our Lady deepened as she prayed the rosary and entrusted her every sorrow to Mary's maternal care. She joined other young women who were drawn to a life of holiness, serving the sick, caring for orphans, and giving witness to the countercultural joy that comes only from the cross. Through fasting, penance, and charity, Kateri radiated a love that drew others nearer to God. Her gentle spirit and constant prayer made her a living icon of Christ's peace in the heart of the Mohawk mission. Kateri's journey was never easy, but every sacrifice, every prayer, and every act of service became a step closer to heaven. In Kanawake, she was no longer an outcast for her faith. She was a lily blossoming in the snow, a sign for all who seek hope and light on their own journey to Christ. Life in the mission of Saint Francis Xavier. The forested banks of the Mohawk River seemed worlds away from the familiar rhythms of Kateri Tekakwitha's early life. Yet it was here, at the mission of Saint Francis Xavier in Kanawake, that the deepest transformation of her spirit unfolded. Driven by a heart consumed with love for Jesus in the Eucharist, and nurtured by the prayers and sacrifices of French missionaries, Kateri crossed both literal and spiritual frontiers, determined to live her faith in radical purity. Arriving at the mission after a dangerous, exhausting journey, Kateri joined a fledgling Catholic community of native converts, each carrying their own stories of persecution and resolve. Their days pulsed with the ancient melodies of Iroquois life, now harmonizing with the rhythm of Catholic devotion, masses at dawn, Eucharistic adoration, and the gentle cadence of Marian hymns. Surrounded by others who shared her passion for Christ.
Is your journey.